For decades, the forests of Eastern Europe were quiet, the borders defined by treaties and trade deals rather than tank traps in razor wire. But if you look at the map today, specifically the movement of heavy armor rolling out of Germany and heading east, you will realize that the era of peace in Europe is effectively over. We are witnessing the most significant military mobilization on the European continent since the height of the Cold War. The images you are seeing, the reports of 800,000 NATO troops on high alert, and the frantic logistical overhaul within Germany itself are not just exercises. This is what a continent looks like when it is preparing for the very real possibility of a total war. To understand why German tanks are once again moving towards the Russian border, we have to look past the headlines and into the strategic nightmare that keeps planners in Berlin and Brussels awake at night. For over 30 years, Germany was the pacifist heart of Europe. Its military, the Bundeswehr, was underfunded, its equipment was gathering rust, and its energy relied almost entirely on cheap gas from Moscow. That world died the moment Russian armor crossed into Ukraine. Now, we are seeing the Zeitenwende, the historic turning point. Germany is no longer just a passive economic power. It is rapidly transforming into the logistical and military hub of NATO's eastern defense. The number you see on the screen, 800,000 troops, is not an exaggeration, but it requires context to understand the sheer scale of this escalation. NATO has transitioned to a new force model. In the past, the alliance had a relatively small response force of about 40,000 soldiers. Today, that structure has been shattered and rebuilt. The alliance has identified over 300,000 troops at high readiness, capable of deploying within days, not months. When you add the reserves and the tiered readiness forces across the alliance, we approached a staggering figure of nearly 1 million personnel standing on the Russian doorstep. But troops alone do not fight wars, logistics do. And this is where Germany's role becomes critical and, frankly, terrifying for the German public. The German government has quietly activated what is known as Operation Plan Germany. This is a classified defense framework that effectively turns the entire country into a turntable for NATO. If a conflict breaks out in the Baltic states and Lithuania, Latvia, or Estonia, the tanks, ammunition, fuel, and medical supplies from the United States, Britain, and France must pass through Germany. The autobahns, the rail networks, and the ports are being surveyed and reinforced not for commercial trade, but for the rapid movement of heavy military hardware. We are talking about Leopard 2 tanks and Puma fighting vehicles moving through civilian infrastructure at a scale never seen by the modern generation. This brings us to the litmus test of this new Cold War. Lithuania. For the first time since World War II, Germany is permanently stationing a combat-ready brigade on foreign soil. The Brigade Litauen is not a rotational force. It is a permanent deployment of thousands of German soldiers, along with their families, tanks, and artillery, placed directly on the border with Russia. Strategically, they are sitting right next to the Suwałki Gap, that narrow strip of land that connects Poland to the Baltic states. Military analysts call this the most dangerous place on Earth right now. If Russia were to cut this gap, the Baltic states would be isolated from their NATO allies. German troops are there to ensure that does not happen, essentially serving as a tripwire. If they are engaged, all of NATO is engaged. However, the preparation for war is not just happening on land maps. It is happening in the gray zones of economic and naval warfare. While Germany prepares the ground, the war at sea is heating up, and this directly impacts Russia's ability to sustain its war machine. We have seen a massive increase in incidents involving Russia's so-called shadow fleet. These are aging, uninsured tankers that Moscow uses to bypass Western oil sanctions. Recent strikes and mysterious accidents involving these tankers are not coincidences. They are part of a broader strategy to choke the Russian economy. When Ukrainian drones or special operations target these assets, or when they are blocked by Western naval posturing, it forces the Kremlin to burn through its cash reserves faster. The footage of burning tankers is a brutal reminder that this is a war of attrition. Russia is currently pouring roughly 40% of its entire national budget into defense and security. They are producing artillery shells and tanks at a rate that NATO is struggling to match. But an economy built entirely on war is fragile. By targeting the energy exports to tankers, the West is trying to pull the plug on the financing of the Russian army. This puts Germany in a precarious position. As the economic engine of Europe, Germany is acutely vulnerable to the blowback. The sabotage of the Nord Stream pipelines was just the beginning. German intelligence services are now warning of increased Russian sabotage activities within Germany itself, attacks on rail lines, cyber attacks on power grids, and arson at industrial sites. The war is not just coming in the hybrid domain. It is already here. We must also look at the political reality within Berlin. The decision to rearm is not without internal resistance. The German economy is struggling, inflation is biting, and the industrial sector is facing high energy costs. Yet, The government is pushing through massive defense spending packages. Why? Because the intelligence briefings landing on the Chancellor's desk paint a grim picture. They suggest that Russia, once it rebuilds its forces from the losses in Ukraine, could be ready to test NATO's Article 5 within 3 to 5 years. The buildup we are seeing now, the 800,000 troops, the German brigade in Lithuania, the missile defense systems being installed in German cities, is a race against time. It is a desperate attempt to build enough deterrence to convince Moscow that an attack on NATO would be suicide. But deterrence is a delicate game. To the Russian military planners and the Kremlin, this looks less like defense and more like encirclement. They see German tanks returning to the east, Finland and Sweden now in NATO, and the Baltic Sea effectively becoming a NATO lake. Putin's narrative relies on the idea that the West is out to destroy Russia, and these moves feed directly into that propaganda. This creates a security dilemma. The more NATO prepares to defend itself, the more Russia prepares to attack, creating a spiral that is very difficult to stop. The movement of troops towards the eastern flank encompasses more than just infantry. We are seeing the deployment of the most advanced air defense systems, including Patriots and the German IRIS-T systems, moving to protect critical infrastructure. The lesson from Ukraine is clear. If you cannot protect your skies, you cannot move your armies. Germany is scrambling to patch the holes in its air defense shield, knowing that in a conflict with Russia, the first wave would not be tanks, but a barrage of cruise missiles and hypersonic weapons targeting command centers in Berlin, Hamburg, and Frankfurt. This is the reality of 2025. The comforting idea that trade would prevent war has been shattered. The end of history has been cancelled. What we are left with is a continent arming itself to the teeth. The soldiers you see training in the mud of Eastern Europe, the German logistical officers mapping out rail routes, and the pilots on standby at air bases across the alliance are the only thing standing between an uneasy peace and a cataclysmic conflict. As we watch these developments, it is crucial to remain grounded. This does not mean war is inevitable tomorrow, but it does mean that the safety mechanisms that held the world together are gone. We are living in a time where a single miscalculation, a Russian jet straying too far, a collision at sea, or a cyber attack that goes too far could trigger a chain reaction that involves those 800,000 troops. Germany has realized that it cannot just be a bystander anymore. It has stepped up to become the shield of Europe. The question remains, will this show of force be enough to keep the peace, or are we simply watching the opening moves of a much darker chapter in human history? The tanks are moving, the soldiers are ready, and the world holds its breath.